Hey believers, welcome back to the Highly and Humbly YouTube channel. My name is Enigma the author, and we're going to talk today. So I just wanted to vent a little bit today, to be honest. The election is in a few days, and you see a lot of opinions on the internet. And I wanted to add my 2 cents. Now, I'm going to give like a faith perspective, like a Christian perspective. And honestly, I already feel in my heart that some of the things I'm going to say, you're not going to agree with. And I'm okay with that. But I feel like I want to be kind of a voice of reason, if I can be. God help me. My prayer before I even decided to do this video was the Psalm. God, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh Lord, my strength and my redeemer. I don't want to say anything out of turn. I really want, but I also feel like this needs to be said. So we're just going to dive right in. So the elections are coming up, and I've done some social media posts about just going to vote, the importance of voting, how to make a voting plan. And I just wanted to, like, as you guys are making your voting plan, and I'll actually upload the making a voting plan video to YouTube so you can share it or so you can use it. And hopefully I'll be able to like point to it here. I think that's how it works, right? I should be able to like insert a click thing there. I just wanted to maybe, from a Christian perspective, try to give you some guidance, right? So, and when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm going to tell you who to vote for. I am not. I won't do it. I refuse. But I feel that I saw a video a couple days ago that really kind of put me on edge. And it was a video of a man saying that because there are a majority of Christians voting for a particular party, if you disagree with the reasoning for that vote, then there's something wrong with your faith. And that did not make me a believer in God, a believer in the church even, just in the community of, a believer in the community of a body of believers. It made me very sad. I wasn't even angry about it. I was just really sad because it's hurtful. It's hurtful to be so, I want to use the word arrogant, to be so arrogant about the way you believe you're hearing God. And so before I get carried away, I just wanted to bring up 2 things. The thing I'm seeing the most is the people who are deciding to vote for Trump from the Christian point of view are using 2 points. And I want to talk about them really quickly, just to put them in perspective, and you can do with this information as you will. So, people who are anti-Biden, Harris, and pro-Trump, and they're using their faith as a reason for it, I've seen in a very, very large majority that the only 2 reasons they have for saying that Trump is a Christian president or he's God's choice, God help us, is that because he is pro-life or anti-abortion, and because he is anti-LGBTQ rights, or whatever. And so my face itches when I am trying to make sure that I'm being as articulate as possible, and when I am also just genuinely frustrated. And so this is where I'm coming from in terms of, I'm going to vote in this election, and I'm not going to say who I'm going to vote for, because again, my goal isn't to tell you who to vote for. It's to help you to put your faith in perspective when it comes to politics. And so I want to start by telling a story. So in the Bible, and I've written a blog about it, the link will be in the description below. In the Bible, there's a story about a woman who is brought to Jesus because she had been caught in the act of adultery. I'm actually going to read the Levitical law about fornication and adultery for you. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to read this in the New International Version. So in Leviticus, the 20th chapter and the 10th verse, here's the law for adultery. If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress are to be put to death. And so there are several things that are interesting about this particular story in the Bible, which can be found in John, the 8th chapter, verses 1 through 11. And one of the first things that stood out to me as I read it as an adult, because again, I read this separate from like preparing for today's like video. But the thing, because I also did a blog series on my website talking about the characteristics of Jesus, and I used this example as an example of compassion. And I also did a Sunday school series. I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not just talking out my butt right now. I did a Sunday school series over the summer that was talking about the law of God and the love of God. And so the conclusion of that series was this: if you are practicing the law of God without the love of God, you are practicing the law incorrectly, because the law doesn't save you. The law doesn't save you. Following the rules of the Bible does not save you. It's your relationship with God that is important. And the reason why I could definitively say that that's important is because that's why Jesus came back. That's part of Jesus' ministry. A significant portion of Jesus' ministry was helping the people understand the law in terms of his love. It was really explaining to the Pharisees and to the people who are following him, and to the people who he was teaching how the law was to be carried out through love. And so the story of the adulterous woman is a really good example of that. So again, the law says that it doesn't even start with the woman. The Levitical law starts with the man. It says if a man is found guilty of sleeping with his neighbor's wife or committing adultery, the adulterer and the adulteress are to be murdered. Not murdered, but punished, killed. I mean, I said murdered, but you kill someone. They're to be put to death. That is the text in the New International Version. Put to death. Put to death is how they say it in the New International Version. It's how they say it in the New Living Translation. It's how they say it in the English Standard Version. It's how they say it in the Berean Study Bible. Put to death is the term they use. So first, the Pharisees in this instance, their goal wasn't to uphold the Levitical law necessarily, because if that were true, if that was the purpose of them bringing the woman taken in adultery to Jesus, they would have brought the man as well. And so right off the back, this is a setup to see if Jesus is coming to break the Levitical law, if he's here to be disobedient. They wanted to use this as an example to discredit him in the faith. And so the way the Bible story is retold is that they bring this woman to Jesus while he's teaching, and he bends over and he starts to write in the ground. None of the text says what he's writing or what he's saying, but they're asking him, like, hey, the law says to stone her, like, what say you? And Jesus is like, if you are a Christian, if you're not, this is something that comes up. This phrase is familiar. He without sin cast the first stone, right? And so the point that I made, this wasn't the when I talk about compassion, it was a different blog. But the point that I'm making in this particular blog, and this particular, the point that sticks out to me is that in this moment, and then later on, when everyone leaves, he writes it, writing the dirt on the ground, and they say, the law says to stone, and what do you say? And he's like, he without sin cast the first stone. And one by one they walked out, and they all walked away until it was just Jesus and this woman standing there. And then at that point he's like, go and sin no more. Like, he's addressing it in that moment. He's like, don't do that anymore, right? But in his priority in that moment was to save her life. And so this is the principle that I think that gets lost, I feel, in politics, because we get so stuck on the law that we forget to act in love. And what does this mean in terms of this election, in terms of your personal beliefs? It means that we have this huge group of Christians who are like, this is the law and this is our law. I want to be specific about that. This is our law, like us as Christians. If you're a believer of the Bible, if you're a believer of Jesus Christ, then the Bible is the principles by which we are supposed to be living by. Now, the first mistake I believe that a lot of Christians make is we try to hold non-Christians to the Christian standard, and you can't, or you shouldn't. You can't. I'm going to use the word can't. You can't hold non-Christians to the Christian standard, because that's not the standard that they've agreed to live by. And so you out of pocket. You out of pocket. One of the examples that I love is you can't go to, and it's also used a lot of the time to defend Christianity in terms of like the rules. Like if you want to get to heaven, you have to follow Christ, because, God, I don't want to say has dibs, but God created heaven and earth. Like, heaven belongs to God, and if you want to go to heaven, you have to believe in God. Like, I feel very strongly about that. And so I often heard growing up, you can't go to McDonald's and demand a Big Mac. You can't go to Burger King and demand a Big Mac, and you can't go to McDonald's and demand a Whopper. McDonald's don't sell Whoppers. Burger King don't sell Big Macs. They don't have. So that was that was what was often used to help people understand like biblical principle in terms of like eternal reward. But I also wanted you to apply that same principle to how we live even in this world. In this world, as Christians and as believers, we live here, right? We live on earth with other humans until Christ comes back, until we die and we meet Jesus in the end, or meet our, whoever you serve. And all the way here, it says we're to be in the world, we are to be in the world but not of the world. We are to be like a city on the hill. We are to be the salt of the earth. Like, we are to be different while we are here. And the way we should stand out, the ways that the world should see us should be how close we are to Christ's character. They should see us and want to know who we serve based off of how closely we align our lives to the character of Christ, in terms of like being compassionate, being kind, being loving, like healing the sick, feeding the poor. These are the characteristics. This is what Christ did while he was on earth. He helped people, he healed people, he loved people, right? And we get so caught up in but the law that God says, we're not supposed to murder people, and God says you're supposed to, man's only supposed to marry women. Yeah, men are only supposed to marry women, and women are only supposed to marry men, and everything else is unbiblical. Okay, fine, cool. These are our beliefs, right? These are our beliefs, but these are our beliefs. These aren't the beliefs of the world at large, right? Even though Christians are a significant portion of the world, then I will stick to America. America does not live in a theocracy, right? And so we need to regulate our expectations about how our faith plays a part in policy and politics, because we don't live in a theocracy. People, even though there are people who claim to be Christians in political power, their job isn't to maintain and uphold Christian values. Their jobs are to serve the people they're representing, and the people they're representing are not always Christians. And I think that we are losing focus of that as Christians, as believers in this day and age. Your goal is to live your life according to the biblical principles. Your goal is to live and to impact your immediate community to the best of your ability, and to reflect Christ well to those people who you have connection with. And in terms of voting, your goal, your purpose should be to vote for the candidates that most closely adhere to things that are important to you. And that is more shown in your local elections than it is in the federal and for the presidency. The policies and the things that if we're going to be focused on being Christ representatives on earth, we need to be more involved in our local. If we're going to be involved in politics, be involved in your local politics. Know what's going on in your community. But if the only reason why you're voting for Trump is because he's pro-life and anti-LGBTQ, there is something significantly missing in how you're processing your faith and how you're living out your faith. And then I also want to say the people who are very, very loud about saying that Trump is God's president, I want to say this for the record, and you can quote me, you can at me. I am up for healthy dialogue. The only political person I can remember in the history of my faith that Jesus or God himself, what's the word I'm looking for? I remember the word. The only person, political power that I can remember in the history of my faith that God himself endorsed was David. And I intentionally did not go and do like a deep, I didn't want this to be a deep conversation. On a very surface level, God is love, right? And so when we preach and we teach that God is love, and then we say that a man who is historically hateful, openly, publicly hateful towards people who don't look like him, hateful. He's a hateful man. I have no problem saying that. He's a hateful man. This man who he said things that are so terrible, and he won't apologize for him. He is, like I said what I said, kind of vibe. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not like, there are no perfect people, so there are no perfect politicians. But this man is hateful. This man is loudly hateful. And you have people saying that he is God's president. That makes no sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. And my opinion is if you are going to vote for him, that's between you and your ballot and the Lord. But to take it that extra step and to say that God told you to vote for him, and to take it that extra step and to say that if you're not voting like the majority of evangelicals and the majority of Christians and supporting him because he is anti-abortion and because he is anti-LGBTQ, I believe that particular stance, that particular argument is incredibly Pharisaic. And what I mean by that is, I don't see the difference between that opinion and how the Pharisees were treating Jesus when he was telling them about themselves. And again, at me, if you have like a biblical precedent that is different from what I'm saying, I need you to let me know, because maybe I'm misinformed. But the vast majority of information that I have seen does not look like an accurate representation of Christ. The behaviors, the language, I don't see it. I don't see it. I literally have nothing else to say except for, like, again, vote. Research your ballot. Make sure you're voting for people who can get as close to your ideals and beliefs as possible. I mean, holistically, because I'm not going to delve into the LGBTQ conversation. The Bible is right, and rather, God is still on the throne, and so God's priority with people who have varying sexualities is not who they're having sex with, but the position of their heart. And so, if you can't see past someone's sexuality to see their heart and to speak to their heart and to speak to their mind and to heal them and to help them in the way God would see them. Because God isn't looking at people and looking at their sexuality and like, oh, you're going to hell. He's looking at your heart. He's looking at what you believe. He's looking at who you believe, right? And so our goal is to help people to meet Jesus. And if people can't hear Jesus, if all they're hearing from you is how much they're wrong and how much they are going to hell, like, that's not how you reach people. And it's certainly not how you love people. And in terms of the abortion conversation, I only did a little bit of research on that one because I was just genuinely curious as to how significant like these numbers were. And I don't have numbers, like percentage and stuff like that. I will post, that's what I wanted to do. I will post a quote here. And wait a second. So I'm going to read this quote to you. It says, if you're pro-life, the encouraging reality is that those things that matter most, your relationships in your local political community, are the things over which you have the most influence. The things that matter the least, the presidency and national politics, are those things most removed from your daily life. But I've been around the pro-life movement enough to know that we often get this exactly backwards. We're most passionate about the president, yet too many of us are less interested in the crisis pregnancy center down the street. I think, and this is all just my opinion according to my understanding of the faith, if you are super concerned about how your faith is going to play out in politics, you should be involved in your local politics. You should know what's going on in your community. You should know, and you should be on the forefront of helping people, of loving people first. I follow this Instagram page. It's like, what would Jesus do? And then they have, he would love first. He would love first. God is love. And I don't see a lot of love happening. And this is why we're so divided. This is why we have everything that's going on. The point here is to be more Christ-like. And if you're going to be more Christ-like, if Jesus Christ is God the Father in human form, and God is love, we need to love more. We need to love people first. And the Holy Spirit and God will take care of the rest. We need to learn how to love people. We need to learn how to love people and disagree with them. We need to learn how to love people and help them and heal them first. Jesus made sure that they didn't stone her before he told her not to do it again. Again, that's a reference to the woman caught in the act of adultery, right? I purposely didn't want it to be like a super deep thing, like pulling up all these scriptures. I just want it to be like on a basic, if God is love, how can we demonstrate his love above everything else? How? That's all I got for you guys today. This thing has really been like on my heart and my mind. And I hope that I just want to just put a little bug in your ear. Are you following Christ's example for how he engaged with people he disagreed with? Are you following Christ's example on how he engaged with the least of us? Right? Part of the reason why the Pharisees didn't like Jesus is because he hung out with the tax, and even people who were following the Pharisees' lead. He hung out with the tax collectors. He was talking to the woman at the well. He, women of the world who were not like, who have been tossed away. You know what I mean? Like, he hung out with people, he healed people that were demon possessed and had leprosy. Brought back people from the actual dead. Like, that crowd, he hung out with people who were like undesirable, really, to the culture at the time, and he loved them first. And I wonder if we, as the body of Christ, are upholding that standard. I look crazy today, but I've been, like I said, this video has been on my heart for a while, and I just figured that since I have on all my highly and humbly apparel, today would be a good day to do it. I've been running errands, and I had a conversation earlier that kind of just drove me to make this video today. So I just want you guys to remember to be great and to stay humble. Jesus loves you, and I do too. And until next time.